In some ways that's bullish. I'm not gonna marry it. I don't hate it. I'm not gonna date it. I'm just gonna trade it. ADA at 45 cents. ADA at $3. Let's just zoom in on these pictures just so we can. All right, yeah, here's ADA, currently. Hey, yeah, here's ADA at 33 cents. Here's ADA at 30 cents. Here's ADA at 40 cents. You want to see ADA at $3? Gimme. I need. Give me more. I want some. I want to buy some. Meanwhile, now, crickets, baby. It is just nothing but crickets. Number of Bitcoin millionaires double in 2023, adding over 50,000. Is that what a Bitcoin is? My cousin said you can't hold a Bitcoin.
That looks like there's chocolate in there.
What if you ate it and it was a seed phrase imprinted on the chocolate? Oh no, it melted. I left it in my car. All right, as we enter the second quarter of 23, Bitcoin has continued its impressive run, gaining over 80% year to date. This surge in value has sparked renewed optimism around the cryptocurrency, and as a result, the number of millionaires has doubled. Just halfway through April, over 50,000 new Bitcoin millionaires have emerged. Let's see here. Here's just breaking down the number of addresses with dust, a whole lot. Dust to dust, dust to dust. All right, now we're getting to 1%. 1% of a Bitcoin is going to be $300. So now we're getting into real range. Now we're going from now we're going from $30 to $300. You look, 10 million wallets. Now we're going from 300 to 3,000, 7 million wallets. All right, 3,000 to 30,000. God, there's a high amount. 3 million. I did not even know it was that many. Great. Now we're looking at 30 to a third of a million, essentially 300K. That is just under a million. Wow, 838,000 wallets. And the number of wallets between 100,000 and a million, 4 GigaChad Sigma wallets there. U.S. government consolidated, right? So they have one of those wallets.
Well, they're getting rid of it now.
Yeah. But I think they're going from like 206 minus 50, so they'll still be above 100K, I think. Yeah. And then what was it going to be? Like MicroStrategy is a 106-ish, 107, something like that. Then what is it going to be, like Binance and Coinbase? I really don't know. Man, can you imagine having 100,000 Bitcoin?
I can't imagine it. I would be unstoppable. I would be one of those people, if I ever won the lottery, it would be the absolute worst thing for all of my enemies.
They say, well, it depends on what kind of lottery. So there's 2 types of rich people. You have the FU money, right? That's pretty cool. But then there's another level beyond that. And then that is now we're talking about the billionaires. That is the F-me money. Because it's one thing to say, you know what? I bought the house across the street because I didn't like it was blocking my view and knocked it down. F-you. But then there's the F-me money where it's like, yeah, I'll go ahead and waste $44 billion on Twitter so I can change the thing to a Doge. I think long term it's going to be a good play. The F-me, that's, you could really, really start to go down that rabbit hole. I want that type of money.
So if you won the Powerball, let's say it was one of the huge ones,
the huge ones, $800 billion, I'd do the 600 million walk away.
But what would be the first thing that you buy? I know my answer.
First thing I buy is probably going to be, I get the property out of the way, get a bunch of Bitcoin, honestly. It's probably going to be a bunch of Bitcoin.
Probably a bunch of Bitcoin. Yeah,
buy a bunch of Bitcoin, I think. A yacht would be pretty cool, too.
A yacht would be great.
What about you?
That's smart. So I would immediately fly to Wyoming.
What's your first purchase, chat? Where'd you go?
Oh, yeah. I'll ask that in a second.
Where are you flying?
Well, I'm going to fly to Wyoming and open a blind trust.
Okay, I like it.
And then I will immediately begin to buy politicians.
Politicians. Actually, when you said Wyoming, that's where my brain went. Yeah, like you can buy some pretty cheap state Wyoming politicians. That would be pretty cool. All right, yeah. Deezy's hair had cell pressure when he was younger.
Oh my God.
I don't have my top G glasses. If I did, I would do the rest without. All right, top G. Let's talk about hope. How about hope for Bitcoin's new all-time high? Bitcoin hits above 63,000 ahead of Coinbase debut. Wait a minute. This is the wrong year. That's right. We're going back in history, baby. This is this day in crypto. We were at what was the all-time high. It was when Coinbase also launched. And Drew, he kind of wanted me, I could go over the story here, but Drew kind of wanted me to throw out my theory again.
Wait, what was that person's name?
Drew?
No, scroll down. The woman, the dark. Suna Amhaz. She sounds like a Jedi. There's a Jedi name. Like Milton Demoirs. That person, the lady who does the crypto dick butts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Milton Demoirs sounds like a Jedi.
All right. Well, type in your favorite Jedi name. All right. So here's my theory on Bitcoin's all-time high. My theory is when it comes to real intrinsic value, Bitcoin's all-time high was April 13th, not November 9th or whatever it was. So the all-time high of 63, in my mind, I haven't done the real math here, but in my mind, the $63,000 Bitcoin had more purchasing power and was more valuable than the $69,000 Bitcoin. So my theory is, if you extrapolate the data of inflation from April to November, $63,000 was then worth more than $69,000 because we saw those double-digit inflations. We saw the basket of inflation goods where it's like 27% year over year, 18%, 12%, 10%, 10%, 9%, 9%. And then one thing would be 7%. And then real inflation data comes out. Yeah, it was only 6.8. And you're looking at the numbers and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Food, shelter, energy. These are the three main components of what we spend our money on. And then they were up 20%. They were up 30%. And then you get your real inflation data and it's 5% and it's 7%. Clearly, they were massaging the data to lie to you. And so in my mind, 63,000 with that level of inflation we were going through at that time was worth much more as 69,000. I haven't done the math, but if I go back and I find a Wayback Machine, I could buy more eggs with that Bitcoin at 63. I could buy more lumber. I could buy more used vehicles. I could buy a bigger house. Just you name it, chocolate bars. You name it, the $63,000 Bitcoin was the real top. However, it's just due to inflation. Now, of course, 69 is the top when you're looking at fiat. It's just that's just my 2 cents. What do we got for a price prediction, man? I see your crazy schizophrenic board behind you. What secrets have you derived?
Yeah, so I've been doing a deep dive into Cardano for today for the price prediction department.
Okay.
It's crazy. Like when you look online for price predictions, so many websites are only saying $1.65, $1.95, $1.50 for Cardano for 2025 that basically projected the top of the next bull run. And I just feel like those predictions are far too conservative. I mean, Cardano went a little over $3, and when it was at its all-time high, it had a market cap of 95 billion. And I feel like, Cardano's inflation rate isn't that bad. BJ and I did some math on it because it kind of exponentially decreases over time. Like, you know how Bitcoin has a halving? Well, Cardano's halving is like constantly every day. It happens all the time, not at like one certain time, such as Bitcoin. And right now, Cardano's inflation is only 3.6%. 90% of the supply will be out by roughly 2033, with 99% of the supply by roughly 2049. So inflation for Cardano isn't that big of a deal for, say, Dogecoin or something like that. So basically, where we are with Cardano's price prediction is that I'm looking at a $5 to $7 Cardano. I think that is actually, it might be conservative. If it went to $8, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm giving myself a range by saying 5 to 7 with the supply taken into account. That's going to be a little bit higher by the time we get to 2025. We need 189 billion for $5 and 265 billion for $7. Like I said, its all-time high last time was 95 billion. So we're going to have to do about double from last time. But keep in mind, Deezy, like we talked about this morning, when Cardano was at its all-time high last time, it didn't have DeFi. It didn't have NFTs. It didn't have everything it has now. I mean, Cardano recently just hit an 8-month high on its DeFi TVL. DeFi Llama has at 161 million. So I'm super bullish on Cardano moving forward. Voltaire era, all that governance, giving it to the people basically. I'm super bullish on Cardano. It is one of the A's in AHA crypto, and there's a reason for that.
You know, I'm going to actually revise my conservative estimate because we were talking ahead of time. You know, I'm looking at that. I think I said 6-ish, 6, 7. I'm going to actually lower it slightly. If we just share this chart, you know, what do you think of this rationale? We've seen this with Bitcoin, especially. You can kind of do the math on diminishing returns. So our previous all-time high, close to $1, and then the next all-time high was $3. So you're looking at, I know it's not quite exactly this, it's a little under, but a 3x. And so to me, that kind of gives me a target of exactly half that, which is a 1.5x. 1.5x from $3.10, you're going to be looking at that 460 range, 470. So really close. So maybe my new target, conservative target, not, you know, this is what I think. I still think a 6, 7 is on the table here, but maybe my conservative target is now down to 450. Is that too conservative?
No, I think that's completely fair. That's good rationale. I mean, to be completely honest, this bull run, I'm banking on a $5 Cardano. I'd be willing to bet money on a $5 Cardano at the top of the next bull run. Anything after $5 is just bonus points, free money, bonus points.
D Generation X, baby. All right, that's all we got until next time.